Good morning,
Good morning,
everyone.
everybody. How are you this morning?
The sun's
Incredible
coming up.
weather. I have to talk about the weather first. Oh my gosh.
Yesterday was so beautiful.
Oh, we we celebrated my youngest granddaughter's 15th birthday yesterday. So Grace Keeley Schrammel will be 15. I don't know how this happened. Tomorrow.
Wait till
Today. I'm sorry, today.
wait till you
And
see them behind the wheel. It's like, what?
yeah. Yeah, oh my goodness. But we went over to a new place over near KU Med Center, and I'd not been there before, so it was new to me. It wasn't new to them. And walked, got out of the car and walked across the parking lot. And I told Jim, I'm putting my coat back in the car. I do not need this. And it was even warmer when we came out. It was, oh my gosh. Yes, a taste of spring. Just a taste of spring.
Well, I was reading an article and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, he's teasing us with this weather right now. And then by mid-February, we're supposed to have another Arctic blast. And I'm going, ah,
Yeah,
we better soak up the vitamin D now.
soak it up now. And the daffodils are poking their little stems right up out of the ground.
They're brave. They took a chance on the
They
weather.
they took a chance. That's the ones that I noticed at church. Mine are just barely, I can barely see them here, but wow. They better be careful. They better be
They
careful.
they have faith because they're standing on a firm foundation.
Oh, what a lead in to the topic for today. Oh, so Pastor Ross for the last couple of weeks has been talking about potholes, and we talked about potholes last week, but then we also talked about foundation and what does it really mean um, to have a firm foundation. And so all the time God keeps feeding me these fun little stories, and I saved this one from a few weeks ago, but it was about a young couple who bought their first home. It was a fixer upper, and some of us know about fixer uppers. It had sagging floors. I'm guessing it was a pretty old house. And when it rained, the basement leaked. So they decided they have to get this taken care of if they're going to be able to stay there. So the home needed a renovation. And it said after they removed large sections of the basement, I don't know what it was made out of, didn't say. Anyway, it was interesting because something that I had seen in at the farms where my grandparents lived, but the foundation was likely made from old bottles, glass bottles, and plates, and anything porcelain or glass or metal. There was silverware in there. So they said they wondered if their house had been built on a dump site, and could have been. I don't know. Anyway, the engineer said they would have to go deeper to get to solid ground. They'd have to dig deeper. And solid ground, we all know you have to have solid ground for good, strong foundations. So it supports the walls and the roof, the structure of the house. Does that kind of a foundation apply to our life? Do we need some renovation in our life so we have strong walls and a good roof for our life?
And how do you get those? That's the thing. And everybody might have a little bit different path to that.
Being in worship
Right?
and hearing about potholes and foundations, and how we have the one foundation
Sunday
Um,
school, Bible study, those are another ways to do it. And to be in community with others.
yes, that is super important.
Hmm.
It's like
We,
our new Thursday service oriented gathering at 1 o'clock on Thursday. So if anybody's available, come on down to the church on Thursdays at 1 o'clock, because we have little tasks that need to be done, and it's a good fellowship time as well. But that's what helps us build our base, our foundation.
I think of
Strong. Go ahead.
I think of Karen Strife and her ability, and my friend Joanne, that they make quilts, and you start with little pieces and you put them together carefully. You cut them just so, you get special thread, you make it piece by piece or square by square, and then before you know it, you have a blanket that you can put over you, and in faith, that's not any different than building your spiritual life piece by piece. And we put mismatched pieces together to make something beautiful.
That's kind of like our life, though.
Hmm. And it's like our church. The different people in our church are different pieces of the quilt.
We all bring different colors, we all bring different patterns, and it makes a beautiful presentation.
Yes. Yesterday, my husband and I decided to go to Golden Corral for lunch.
Oh, yes.
And I love to sit there and watch different people show up after church. Some come with gorgeous clothing and matching shoes and a special little colored handkerchief in their suit pocket. And, they just look beautiful. And it's a tapestry of all different kinds of people. It's not just people like me or you, Sue, it's different people. And their cultures are different. The way they care for their children is different. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch.
We're all we all bring a special, and I'll just use the analogy of the quilt, but we all bring that special piece to create God's world. And it would be so boring if we all were the same design, the same
Yes.
fabric, the same colors.
Came from
Yeah,
the same religious background. I mean, God wants us to find our path and as to find Him and what He has for us.
there's a scripture that relates to what we're talking about. It's Isaiah 33 verse 6. Isaiah told them, God will be the sure foundation of your times, a rich store of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. And I think the wisdom and the knowledge and the history of the members of our church and our friends, we're so different, and yet we are so much alike. Our
Well,
foundations are so important.
and I'm reminded of our Sunday school lesson yesterday about covenants and covenants that God made with Abraham, Noah, many others to be prosperous. And I'm not talking with money necessarily. Back in the time, that might have translated into wealth and stuff, and in today's world. But I think it's a wealth of love, a wealth of compassion, a wealth of mercy, a wealth of love. I mean, just love, pure, unadulterated love. He would care for us because he loved us. Here's this deal I'm making with you because I plan to prosper you and your family and the many generations coming after.
It's interesting how all of the current that we're talking about goes back to Isaiah 33:6. And it said Isaiah likely prophesied these words between 739 and 681 BC. That's a long time. And the meaning has not changed.
No. And he also, a lot of the prophets and people in the New Testament even quoted, it goes back as far as Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the references, they keep referencing Genesis and the Old Testament, and the New Testament's built on a foundation, first of all, of Christ, but also based on the tradition that goes back to Genesis. And we don't even know how long that is, really, exactly.
No, we do not. And isn't it interesting? Of course, I guess this is not, I shouldn't even make the statement, but since I started, that Jesus in the New Testament is saying the same thing that Isaiah was saying all those years before. And we know that is the solid rock.
How much proof do we need that it's a strong foundation? How much proof do we need that he loves us?
Mm.
I mean, I don't know what to tell people who have trouble uh, finding that solid ground.
And how do we know when our personal foundation needs to be repaired? Sometimes living in the moment, we think everything is just perfect. Don't have any problems in my life. Don't have anything to worry about.
But those aren't the moments that we really remember, I think. I think what we really remember is when somebody reached out to us, when somebody gave us a hug, when somebody told us they cared about us and showed it in a way that resonated with us and that you will never forget. A simple smile, a hug. I can think back, like you and I've talked before, Sue, about our families and the traditions that have been established in our family. And then sometimes we acquire a new family member and the tradition changes a little bit. Sometimes that's an easy transition, sometimes that's a harder transition, but always worth it, always beautiful.
If we look at it with the right eyes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Another one of the things that I found was a sure sign that our personal foundation needs repair is when we see the cracks, like aggression or anger or hate or argumentative words,
Depression, not wanting to get
depression,
out of bed,
addiction.
not wanting to get out of bed in the morning, not wanting to be with anyone.
Right. Those are potholes in our life.
But
That
I see people that have a strong foundation find their way out and talk about it. Um, and I want to share with about Robert Bond and his. He is such a strong has such a strong faith. He reaches out to people. He cares about people, and he's concerned. These are things that repair us and repair others in the same action. It has a dual purpose. And I think sometimes we forget to look for that we're needing just as much as the person that needs in our perception.
Well, Robert has been a huge blessing
Yes.
just by sharing his story with us and being vulnerable to us. That, I mean, he was hurting greatly from the loss of his wife, and the more he shared, you could tell he was just so comfortable, so at home. And he said the first time he walked in the door that he knew that this was where he needed to be.
Well, and you can tell, when we have known faith, when we have known that strong foundation, we know that when we enter into God's house or in community with others, doesn't matter where, he knew what to look for because he'd had it before. When we know that there's
Yeah.
something missing, it's because we've had it before. We know what we're looking for, but where do we go to find it?
And if we're struggling and we see other people that have those qualities or that relationship that is not currently cracked or broken, it helps us. Oh, I can do that. I can do that again. And I'm going to let these folks help me to do that. It's like yesterday when Trish was talking, the children's moment, I couldn't figure out why she had a clay pot. My brain just was not connecting there. But then she gave the girls the broken pieces of the clay pot. And as soon as I saw those, I was like, okay, now I know where we're going. But God uses those broken pieces, our broken pieces, to create a beautiful new clay pot. And maybe it's not just our pieces, not just the pieces of our lives, but he's intertwining, mixing them together and making something completely new. And I think that's where all of our new programs at church are springing from, our special interest groups, our small groups, because common interest and wanting to be supported, wanting to support and help others is bringing us together in new and different ways. And I've had, just in this past week, I've had several people suggest a couple of more ideas for small groups. So we'll be taking a look at those and see if we can make those happen as well. Because if there's a need by one, there's probably a need by more than just one.
Because it takes courage to say that you need something.
It does.
Takes a lot of courage. And others are just waiting for you to speak out.
Because they don't want to be the leader.
Because they don't want to call attention to their need.
Right.
It's humbling to be needy. And so we all are broken and we all need, but at different levels with different resources to help different people.
We have to be open. Our hearts and our minds have to be open. We have to, here we go again, we have to listen. We have to actually hear what other people are saying, because it may be with a very small, quiet voice that we hear one of those requests come forward to us.
Be vulnerable is hard.
Yes, vulnerability is very difficult, because you lay your heart and soul wide open when you're vulnerable.
But I've noticed that when you do that, that others are waiting and they are so grateful for an opportunity to talk about it, to be in a community where you can share about that's safe, a safe harbor.
They in our small groups and the interest groups are safe.
Mm-hmm.
There's no pressure. There's no saying that you specifically have to lead a group. You can come and be part of a group and learn and grow and share and develop new friends, new fellowship opportunities.
And I just want to say that sometimes, even with us that have been in the church for decades, it's hard for us when we see things changing and we become despondent because you don't see the good change, you see a negative change. And for you, it's extra hard to reach out or to find a new way that's maybe uncomfortable. And if you're comfortable in your negativity or your sad place or your less than positive place, then it's hard to leave it because it's become comfortable.
Right. Yeah, comfortable is
God
the
doesn't,
easy, it's the easy place.
yes, God doesn't want us to necessarily be comfortable.
That's why he gives us those little pricklies all the time.
And sometimes that's why our foundation leaks.
Because we got too comfortable and we didn't go check things out.
Or the roof leaks or whatever, you know.
And
How did
and
that happen?
because we weren't paying attention.
Absolutely.
And it is so important for us to pay attention to the people
Mhm.
around us. Um, we come to church or any place that we go on a regular basis. We come, we do what we do, and do we really look around? No, because everything is so familiar. Nothing has changed. I'm going to say like the location of something. We kind of shuffled up the plants in the gathering area a little bit, rearranged a couple of things. And Sunday morning, somebody said, "Oh, I like this plant up here." It's like, okay, well, it's not really a plant. It's silk.
Right. But it
So
looks pretty.
yeah.
Well,
So
and the
we
thing
just
about it is, we also get to a point where, we don't even check on the things. We don't notice that something's not what it could be. Like maybe the carpet needs cleaning, or the pews need dusting or polishing. Something needs to be, spruced up. Doesn't have to cost a lot of money sometimes. It just has to be maintained. We have to constantly maintain our faith, and it requires effort. And it's really hard sometimes when you're tired and you've been in this basement a long time and you can't get out and you can't find a way out. Maybe the stair is broken or it's too dark in there and you can't see it. Um, I don't know. The analogies are endless, but um, it's hard to step up and out into positivity, expecting miracles, expecting to make a new friend, to grow the church. It's an expectation because God made a covenant with us,
he did.
and to grow. And as long as we step out in faith and keep working at it, even though it may or may not bear fruit immediately, eventually it does. You have to keep watering it and fertilizing it, kind of like that new garden we're anticipating.
Yes.
We're gonna grow a new garden at the church. Is what I'm hoping for.
All right. I like that analogy. I like that. But we have to keep our eyes open. We have to maintain what we have, the good parts,
Hmm.
and we have to work to develop new feelings for people, new opportunities. Um, Growth, spiritual growth is so important. And what a blessing that we have our streaming service back now on Sunday mornings.
Yes.
Um, I, Several comments on Facebook about how much they had missed seeing, because this is my home church and I'm not able to get there in person, and I really missed seeing everybody and not being there. So, I mean, it's priceless when we can touch lives in such a simple way. And the number of views that we are getting on our service speaks highly of the need for online worship for so many people.
Yes.
Not just because it's easy and it's comfortable to stay at home and watch a church in my jammies instead of making the effort to get to church. It's those people that they are physically not able to get there, or because of the fear of the virus or whatever the bug is that's going around. It affects a lot of our people.
And a lot of times I think we forget that we've become a culture of people working from home. So we're not only worshiping from home, people are working from home. And it's a new way of living that those of us in earlier decades before COVID that were in the workplace, we didn't do that. We weren't able to do that. We might have liked it because it would have been easier to work from home. We didn't, you don't have to buy special clothes to go to work. You don't have to put gas in the car. You don't have to have a car. You can sit at home and be productive and do work and provide for your family. So I don't think that it's necessarily bad. We just have to kind of look at it in a different way. Things are changing and sometimes it's okay.
And for me, I never had that work at home opportunity because I retired before that. But I think back to when I was sitting in an office. You certainly can't do retail from home, working at home like we used to work for the Jones store and that. Anyway, that was my favorite job was retail. But sitting in a cubicle doing your job is different than sitting at home doing your job, because you at least have the people around you. You have the opportunity for those relationships, for supporting each other, and not, I'm just sitting here in the room by myself kind of situation, because there's no opportunity for personal growth. No connection. Yes, the connections are very difficult. So the connection for what we're talking about today, if you had to pick one hymn, Debbie, what would it be for the foundation of the church?
The church's firm foundation.
Oh, you played right into that.
I had to reach into the deep recesses of my mind.
The deep crevices. Oh, so the first stanza, the church's one foundation is Jesus Christ, her Lord. She is his new creation by water and the word. From heaven he came and sought her to be his holy bride. With his own blood he bought her, and for her life he died. There was a pastor from Phillipsburg, Kansas, that wrote, he dissected this song. I just want to make a couple of comments. How does Christ make disciples in the church? Well, he makes them by water and the word. Baptism is the work of God and not our own work. So he kind of gives us a little insight with each one of these, and that would be a whole lesson in itself. Elect from every nation, yet one over all the earth. That stanza speaks of the church from all over the world, united by one Lord, one faith, and one birth. There's so much good stuff in that. So maybe I'll bring that back another time.
Who wrote that hymn?
His name was, no, come on.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No. His name is Reverend James Peterson, First Lutheran Church, Phillipsburg, Kansas. Yeah. Pretty amazing way to think a little bit differently about our foundation. We all need foundation repairs regardless of where we are in our life. We might think we have everything is wonderful and going good, but there are some cracks in our foundation.
Well, and
So
we need to make do some patching.
we need to do some patching.
And just being in community.
I would like to close with just the verses from Isaiah 33, 2-6. Lord, be gracious to us. We long for you. Be our strength every morning, our salvation in time of distress. At the uproar of your army, the people flee. When you rise up, the nations scatter. Your plunder, O nations, is harvested as by young locusts. Like a swarm of locusts, people pounce on it. The Lord is exalted, for he dwells on high. He will fill Zion with his justice and righteousness. He will be sure the foundation of your times, a rich store of salvation and wisdom and knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the key to this treasure. The fear of the Lord is key to this treasure. The reverence, the respect, the love.
And that's part of our worship service at church, is the reverence, the way we approach the altar reverently. We light the candles, we show respect, and we take the light with us into the world.
So I encourage all of you to listen with your ears and listen with your heart and your soul this week. How is God working to repair your foundation? How is he filling in the potholes in my life that I have created? We will see you next Monday. Have a beautiful week.
Bye-bye.